Yo, what's up guys, Seii Chronicles here, talking about Seal. We will get Seal on the Thursdays, just some information about what team comps to use, how the run looks like, what you should expect, and maybe some units you can already build. First of all, let's look at the thing. It's this boss that you also have seen, like pretty much like the tutorial boss, and you've seen it around like a few times. Looking at the strategy tips at first. So the main thing about this boss is that you cannot do damage by your normal skills. You have to do debuffs. And debuffs in the form of dots. So that would be like the burn, bleed, frostbite, poison, electric shock, and then also the explodes and bombs. Bombs not really recommended, but this thing has high resistance, so you need high accuracy. So that also means that if we check, for example, what are the units that are mostly used, it's a lot of dot units. Also, what you often see is Tion and Bernard. You need to be dodging a lot. So pretty much most people will use a Bernard. Another option is Remy that also has a speed buff, but I think Bernard in most cases is better because you also get the attack speed buff. Tion is a good healer, Annabelle is a good healer, so most of your teams will be Bernard, Annabelle or Tion, and then plus some extras. The extras will be the debuff units. So debuff units, you have a bunch of options. Tattoo is pretty good as free to play. It has the potential to explode burning, and it also does slight burning by itself. Akamir is very good, but since we don't have Akamir event, I don't think that many people will have Akamir. But he's very good. But I will go over like specific units, why they're that good at the end of the video. First, I'll show the run, but I show like a few of the units that you can think of like, okay, these are maybe good units. Bastet is something you see from time to time in here as well, but Bastet is actually not that great in my opinion, because you don't need the attack buff. You could go for the shields, but shields are not really that useful as well because you have ignore targets, damage medication effects, aka shields. So a bunch of those skills do have it, some of the skills don't have it. But for that reason, I feel like Bastet is not really that useful. So the main teams that you probably want to use are a dot unit, a healer unit, and then a speed buffer unit. If you want to check like specific room builds, Annabelle is just her typical tanky set for healing, that kind of stuff. Bernard is just a tanky set as well. And the dodder in this case is a chamomile, and it kind of depends on what kind of dodder you're running, because some of them they have like dots extending on the S1, dots on the S1, I mean like the basic attack, and therefore you want to have more attack speed. If they only do it on the skills, you want to do it more towards accuracy. In this case, it's also pretty decent accuracy. I would kind of maybe just max out accuracy altogether. I'm not sure how much accuracy you need, but I would say the higher the better. I'll first show a run and then I show like, okay, what are the options for dot units? Because this is maybe the place where you can use your more niche units. If you put like an LD4, LD5, there's a bunch of them that have pretty good dots. If you don't have any of them, should everyone just run tattoos? That is an option. In the case for the elements for the main characters, Orbia should always be fire, because that's the best way for Tattoo to do extra damage, because these fires can be exploded. You can use some Orbia Dark for the poison S3, but that's just the S3, so in general I recommend fire. If we go to Kina, I think I recommend the water one, because water one actually gives attack speed up, and if there's a bunch of units that have debuff extensions or extra debuffs or anything like that based on the S1, that will help for Kina being water. Other things that could help, I think Kina can do electric shock on wind as well, so that could be an extra debuff if there's not too much electric shock. In the case of Cleave, I think Cleave is wind as well, also for electric shock. Like the main thing you want to aim for is just putting more debuffs, and debuffs in the sense of dots. So the moment the person goes in with a team, for example, saying like, okay, he goes in with an Argon, he goes in with a Sekhmet, he goes in with a Bastet, kick that person, because that person is going to be absolutely useless in this run, because you only do damage with debuffs. Sometimes you're seeing like a bunch of units and you're like, okay, does this actually do debuffs? Like for example, this Water Cowgirl, does it do debuffs? I think it is a unit that bleeds, so don't kick everyone with like weird teams right away. You also don't need 6 Bernards, but it's pretty useful to keep at least like 4 to 5. And then if you see like people having like multiple or like pretty much 4 or 5 Bernards in total, you could say like, okay, maybe I remove mine for an extra dodder that you have or something like that. But the dodder options I'll talk about in a sec. But as you can see, oh, we actually got a full team already. That actually went faster than expected. Most of the time you have to wait quite a while for getting full team. So a few options that you see over here. This is a bleeding unit, if I'm not mistaken. I think this person will switch out that unit at some point. I hope this one switches their stuff inside as well. That's actually Yeah, they also mention like we'll switch inside, we'll switch inside. So that is always good. Always mention that if you have like a pretty wrong team, just mention that you switch inside. And that's how you're pretty much good to go that way. So let's actually see what people switch to. This person said he would switch inside. Let's see what he switches to. And I guess this person also have to switch. Argon is not useful here. Crow does have poison on the S1 if I'm not mistaken. But this person is going to be kind of useless because Argon is not going to do anything. And I think he's just kind of AFKing as well. That also doesn't really help. So for the link, in most cases, you kind of want to link either your Bernard or you want to link your unit that heals. You can link your dotting unit, but it only depends like if they have a skill that dots. So in this case, you probably have seen these skills already quite some, but you never really had to dodge them that much. In this case, you would have to dodge a lot of this stuff, and you kind of have to get used to like dodging all of these skills because you also want to keep your units at F3 at all times pretty much. But what I mostly do, if you want to get like a safe run where people don't fail, you actually want to keep on your NFL and you just start healing like the units of other people. That is for me what I've noticed to be the safest of runs. So he has a bunch of attacks. He has this attack of like, well, pretty much let's call it like hitting on the side. Someone's Argon already died. I think that guy is just straight up AFKing, useless guy. So these skills are all pretty easy to dodge. The one where he slaps on the left and then pretty fast on the right. You have to really stand on the edge, which is this one. If you stand on the edge and you pretty much already start walking to the... Oh, it was not that one. You already start walking to the other side. This skill it is. That hit comes pretty... Or the second hit comes pretty fast. So if you anticipate it, you're pretty much good to go to the other side already. Apparently we have a whole bunch of slackers that do absolutely no damage. Apparently I do the most damage here, which is mostly not really the case in this. But we have a bunch of slackers in here, it seems. A revive unit is not bad as well, so in this case we have to stand close to that again, otherwise we would definitely have gotten hit by that one. And he's just spamming the same skills. At some point he will go towards other skills. So that is that skill on the sides, pretty easy to dodge as well. Also you can right away see you have 6 people here and it still takes quite some time to actually kill this thing. I think they actually made it easier. So okay, so he's at some point he starts jumping and then he starts jumping to a circle, and the moment the circle hits, he goes for like an AoE around it. So once again, you want to stand close to the circle. He has the same pattern. You will get used to the pattern. Like at some point he jumps here, and then I think the next one is over there. Yep. And that's also his last jump for this skill. Also, you do not want to use your ultis or anything, because there's going to be a stage where you do want to use your ulti, if you have it. So in this case, don't use your ulti yet. And we're just going to go over there. You have these bombers, and it's recommended to actually hit these bombers, because it's not necessarily that they are super hard to dodge, but it gives you more space to dodge while also still minding the boss. Because it could be hard to dodge the boss if there's also like another thing exploding. This one you really want to be careful for. This one goes pretty far, and this is pretty much a one-shot. So that is one of those that you actually have to dodge. Like if I don't dodge this one, just get a decent amount of damage. But that other one with like the waves going up and that kind of shit, that is actually something that you really want to dodge. So in this case, it is somewhat tricky. Okay, I have to move out of here. If you do enough damage by yourself, you should be able to clear out these suicide bombers pretty fast. So it's not that much of an issue to just kill it by yourself. But it is more chill if you hit it with like 2 or 3 people, and therefore it's a lot faster down. So, okay, we have those. You can also see them on the mini-map where they're at. Damage of people are pretty equal. So for Kinas, they're actually using wind. Orbias are all fire. And Cleaves are, I think, wind as well. So in this case, we're standing over here. We can't really hit that thing yet. But it's just chill to hit it. I think those things got nerfed, actually. Because I felt like you had to do a lot more damage before to actually clear them. So yeah, I think we've seen most of the skills already. It looks pretty easy right now, but everyone is somewhat used to it. Expecting Europe for the first few kills and clears that you're going to do, everyone's going to die and stand in every AoE because they're not really used to dodging as much yet. In this case, this is where you want to use your ulti. So you want to make sure that your units are targeting this thing, and you want to clear this as fast as possible. Because the moment you clear this thing, you will get a shield. You also want to make sure that your units are staying with you. Maybe you have to walk around so your units don't stand outside of the circle and die. And this thing would be an AoE insta-clear if you're not in that shield. You can actually still use that shield to get invis like this. So you can actually kind of abuse that thing still for, but it's just a few seconds extra that you can use it. It's not that much time. So in this case, these guys are actually clearing that thing. You don't always have to clear them. It's just kind of depending on like, okay, is it useful enough to clear them? I think we have like one leecher. Do we still have one leecher? Oh, in this case, I'm gonna get hits. Nope, I don't get it. So yeah, as you can see, Bernard is very useful for this. Like, you really need to make use of your Bernard. And in this case, are we going to see someone standing in that one? Nope. And we're pretty much getting close to like clearing the boss already. And that's the thing, like if everyone just has like pretty good dot units, it makes it so much easier to clear all of this. If people don't die and have all of their units dying because they can dodge shit, it's a lot easier. So in this case, my NFL decided to stand over there and start killing herself. It's not really that useful. Also, what's more useful is actually to select, okay, you want to see the damage maybe, this and this. No, wait. Or can we see, I want to see the damage. These two. Every time I see people on low HP, I just heal with my NFL. That's like an option you can do to just make the run a little bit safe. But in this case, you can't really... Oh, that's annoying because people took like the destroy HP bullshit. So, well, this guy's just hella fucking... Yeah, he literally has like no units there. You're gonna have a bunch of those slackers in there that just do absolutely nothing. They walk in with an Argon and that kind of shit. Get those people. Like, trust me, you don't want to have those slackers and leechers in your team. Also, the thing is, if you do too little damage on this boss, you're not gonna get a reward. So if you don't bring any dollars in this boss, and these people, they clear it, they just don't get a reward. So they're not only wasting your time, they're wasting their own time as well. So it's just straight up useless for them for doing that. So yeah, as you can see, bosses, it's not all too hard. Like, this one is a lot easier to dodge than what we will get for the one after, which is going to be Marsh. This one is relatively easy to dodge on most of the skills, but you kind of have to get used to the skills. Like, expect you to die like a few times on the first few tries, expect your teams to kind of die. But at some point you kind of get used to like, oh, that skill goes pretty far, so I can't just stand like just in front of it. If the bombers spawn, we kind of have to clear the bombers if there is a reason to, if we have to stand close to it. This guy's playing it like a true cleave, standing in there, hitting all of the things, like just headbutting everything. So in this case, do we get another? We just get into the range of another one. So this is the point where you want to have as many people up as possible, because if you can't clear this, it's an AoE freaking wipe. You can revive on this boss. I think you can revive like 2-3 times. It does cost you the crystals, of course. And at this point, you always want to make sure that your units are with you and you don't play like a true cleave and just stand next to the fucking thing and your units die. So you always kind of want to move around, make sure that your units are sticking next to you rather than wandering off, standing in a freaking AoE. So in this case, I'm standing at a very bad spot actually, because I wanted to clear this thing, but this thing is about to explode, so we just cleared it in a second. That is totally fine. So yeah, even for me, you can see my HP is getting destroyed and getting quite a bit lower as well, so... I'm also not doing this run perfectly, but I'm doing better than this guy, having all of his units dead and being useless. Would be surprised if he actually gets a reward. Wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't. So yeah, let's see. We almost cleared this. So it's all about the debuffs. It's all about the dots. If people don't bring dots and debuffs, kick them. Kick them. They're useless. So yeah, this point you also see a reward, which is like roll based. So the higher you roll, the higher rewards you have. Did everyone? Yeah, actually everyone did get a reward. So you get a bunch of these materials. You're going to not always get all of the materials from this. This was actually a pretty slow run. There was like 8 minutes. Like the fastest we did was 3 minutes. So it could be a lot better if people actually have proper debuffs and that kind of stuff. You do get these coins which you can buy stuff from. You get gem seals, which is pretty nice. This is like pretty legit stuff in general, because you can also upgrade them and put them to other stuff. And you can get like the weapons or like the equipment right away. And the guy with the highest roll actually got it like 2 upgrades higher than I did, which is pretty nice as well. You also can get runes from it from time to time. So the moment you do this more often, you also get rune rewards. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. So let me actually show you which units I think are pretty good for building this. Well, you mainly have to look at like, okay, what are the debuffs? And the debuffs as in dots. What are the good dots? So in this case, we have a whole bunch of them, which are burn, bleed, frostbite, poison, electric shock. And that's, yeah, bomb also works, but it's not that great. So let's first check at burn. You have a bunch of units that have burn. You can also see like how much damage burn is in here. I think what the best units would be for burning would be probably Smoky, because Smoky also explodes the burning. That is same as like Tatu in Sky Arena. That is very useful. And of course, if you want to make a free-to-play unit, the free-to-playest unit for this is Tatu itself, because Tatu itself also has the explode burning. However, Tatu is not that great of a applier of debuffs herself as well. It's more of just the exploding, so you don't want to have 6 Tatus in your team, because if everyone wants to explode and no one's really putting the debuffs, it doesn't really help all too much either. But I would say from the units that are pretty good here, Rika, I guess, has pretty good debuffs. If you have Tessarion, Tessarion actually has the burn on the S1, so if you put him on a set of Swift, so he hits the S1 faster, or the basic attack, whatever you want to call it. And then you also spam the skill that has like extra burning kind of stuff in there. So you can do a decent amount of burning on him if you already have him built, so you don't have to build a specific unit for it. Let's see what other harmful effects we have. We also have Bleed. There's not too many units that actually have Bleed, but for me, I have Cadiz, so I will start using Cadiz's Bleed. I know that this one is pretty decent for bleeds as well, if I'm not mistaken. We have not this skill, Bleed and Poison. That's actually not bad. It is a 5 cost though. But yeah, that's, well, it also does like extra damage, but this extra damage is near to nothing. But Bleed and Poison are somewhat more rare. The stack of it is pretty long, 20 and 30 seconds. So for a 5 cost, it is expensive, but I guess this unit can also do it. It's called Seal, and you can use it in Seal. I think joke of the month. You could use this thing for a Bleed as well, if I'm not mistaken. There's a Bleed on this skill, but it's not that great of a Bleed, so I wouldn't really recommend to use that unit. If we go for Surge again, we go for Frostbite. Let's check the Frostbite units. Tessarion, or I mean, Theomars is a unit that maybe some people already have. Theomars has, again, Frostbite on the S1. Does it? No, actually, that's extra damage if there is Frostbite, and then there's only Frostbite on this skill, which actually makes Theomars a lot worse. It does do Frostbite, but since the S1 doesn't, or the basic attack doesn't provide Frostbite, it's a lot worse. So I wouldn't really recommend going for that one. If you do have Akamamir, Akamamir is very good. You kind of want these units to be max skilled if you use them. But this one is very nice because every auto attack you have an increase the dot duration by 2 seconds. So especially for the rare dots out there, it's pretty chill to place them that way. And it also has Electric Shock. So it's one of the few units that have Electric Shock. So Akamamir is very good if you have that already. And that's kind of the sad part where we didn't get that unit yet from the event. If you have this unit, this one is the best for Frostbite in general, if I'm not mistaken, because this one has a explode on Frostbite. So if there's a lot of units with Frostbite, then this thing will explode. But I guess you need like a team that has like a decent amount of Frostbite in general, so it's maybe not that great. Other units, I heard that Yaku is not bad for placing Frostbites as well. But I'm not entirely sure like how good it is, but it seems both skills have Frostbite. It also has the defense penetration. I'm not entirely sure if that works against this boss. I don't really think so, but I heard that Yaku was pretty decent for this as well. I'm not sure how much Frostbite you apply. But those are kind of the things that you want to look out for. We also have a bunch of poisons. Poison is actually pretty interesting because this is a lot of the dark units. So if people have Grego, Grego is very good for this. Definitely if you have Grego, use that unit for it. Because this is a pretty nice poison that you can land on that. What else do we have? You saw someone going in with this thing. I am not entirely sure if this is that useful. It has the damage taken up, but I'm not 100% sure if that actually works for dots as well. But you have a poison on this, but it's just a 6% rate, and the other skills don't have poison, like, and this doesn't really help you. It does have attack speed up on that skill, so that I guess Crow is not too bad. I don't think it's crazy good, but I think Crow is not too bad. We also have this thing if you might have it, so there's a whole bunch of options for your dollar unit. The easiest to go for is just the Tatu. Like if you don't know what to do, if you don't have any of those net 5s, just go for Tatu. I would say if you have a Tessarion, probably go for your Tessarion. Theomars apparently is not that great. Oh, another unit that actually applies Frostbite is Theor. And Theor also has Frostbite on the basic skill as well as on the Q skill. So Theor is a pretty decent unit to apply Frostbite as well. And then, yeah, maybe you have one of the LD5s that applies Frostbite or something like that. So there's a whole bunch of options. There's not one specific way that is good. And it's also good if everyone has something slightly different. Like, for example, if there's a bunch of tattoos, it's very good to stack Burning with a lot of people. But you probably are going to see a lot of Orbias on Fire, and Orbia Fire already applies a lot of Burning, so that part is kind of covered, I would say. So then you would have to check, like, okay, if any debuff is at a 10 stack, you cannot get higher than that 10 stack. So if everyone is applying, like, Poison, like, next level, at some point you're at 10 stack and you don't do more damage than that. So you want to kind of spread out who's doing what debuffs if you want to get, like, a fast run on this. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is to Seal. Seal is very important to get your material to craft anything towards the 6 and also the 6-2, which are these materials, which are different per thing that you need. So you also don't get all of them all the time. So it's kind of RNG which one you get and how many you get of those. For that reason, I would actually recommend you, if you have the crystals for it, to also refresh your Seal. So Seal is somewhat expensive to refresh. It's only 2 times per week that you can do it extra. You have 2 weekly entries, and then afterwards you have like a bunch of support, like whatever entries or something like that. I'm not entirely sure what it is. But this is one of those that I totally recommend you to refresh if you have the crystals for it, because these materials are very rare, even though that this is pretty expensive. But keep in mind, it's per week, it's not per day. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is to the Seal video. Guys, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.